I used to pride myself on our perfect family dinners. Every Sunday, like clockwork, my 3 children would gather around my mahogany dining table with their spouses, filling my home with laughter and the kind of warmth only family can bring. At least that's how it used to be, until Jessica, my eldest son David's wife, started making excuses. It began subtly enough. A missed dinner here, a late work meeting there. But over the past 8 months, those excuses had become almost predictable. When she did show up, she'd sit quietly, pushing food around her plate, her usual vibrant personality dimmed like a light slowly burning out. "She's just busy with a new promotion," David would say, defending her absence for the 3rd Sunday in a row. But I noticed how he wouldn't quite meet my eyes when he said it, how his fingers would drum nervously against his leg, a tell he'd had since childhood when he was hiding something. Last night, while cleaning out my home office, I found my old phone in a drawer. I'd forgotten about it after upgrading last Christmas. On a whim, I charged it up, thinking there might be some family photos I hadn't transferred. Instead, I found something else. A video recording from last year's 4th of July reunion. A recording I never meant to make, activated by accident when I set my phone down on the patio table. The timestamp showed 8:47 p.m. Most of the family had moved inside for coffee and dessert, but the recording captured voices from the far corner of my garden, by the old oak tree. My sister Margaret's distinctive tone, followed by my youngest son Peter's wife, Amanda. "Did you see how she just sat there, acting all innocent?" Margaret's voice dripped with contempt. "After what she did to poor Emily?" "Keep your voice down," Amanda hissed. But yes, I saw. The nerve of her showing up today, playing the perfect wife. I pressed pause, my hands shaking. Emily was Margaret's daughter, who'd abruptly quit her job at the same law firm where Jessica worked as a senior partner. Emily had moved across the country shortly after, barely keeping in touch with any of us. At the time, she claimed it was for a better opportunity, but now, I forced myself to press play again. "Everyone knows she sabotaged Emily's case," Margaret continued. "Changed the filing dates, misplaced key documents. Emily worked on that case for months, and Jessica made her look incompetent in front of the entire firm. Because Emily found out about David and they..." Amanda's voice cut off abruptly as someone slid open the patio door. The recording continued for another 30 minutes but only captured distant party sounds and occasional laughter. I sat in my office, staring at the phone, pieces falling into place like a terrible puzzle. Jessica's sudden promotion to senior partner. Emily's hasty departure. The way David had been drinking more at family gatherings. His jokes becoming slightly too sharp, too bitter. But what had Emily found out? What was David involved in? I looked at my calendar, at tomorrow's date circled in red. Our annual family reunion, the 10th one I'd hosted. Jessica had already texted her regrets, citing a business trip to Seattle. David would come alone again, with that strained smile and rehearsed excuses. My finger hovered over the phone's delete button. Perhaps some things were better left buried, some perfect family images better left unshattered. But I thought about Jessica. How her bright laugh had disappeared from our gatherings, how she flinched last Christmas when Margaret deliberately spilled wine on her new dress, an accident she claimed. I thought about Emily, who'd missed her grandfather's funeral because she couldn't get away from work, who'd stopped calling her mother, who'd blocked most of the family on social media. The perfect family dinners I prided myself on suddenly felt like elaborate stage productions, with everyone playing their parts while ugly truths festered beneath the surface. And I, the family matriarch, had been either too blind or too willing to ignore the signs. I picked up my current phone and typed out a message to Jessica. "I know about last year's reunion, and Emily, we need to talk." My finger trembled over the send button. Sending this would change everything. The carefully maintained facade of family harmony would crack. Sunday dinners would never be the same. But maybe they shouldn't be. I pressed send. 3 dots appeared immediately, dancing on my screen for what felt like an eternity. Then, "Give me an hour. I'll come over." I walked to my kitchen, my steps heavy with the weight of what was to come. As I prepared coffee, Jessica's favorite dark roast that she'd stopped drinking with us months ago, I caught my reflection in the window. Behind me, the dining room stood silent, family photos lining the walls, smiling faces captured in perfect moments, frozen in time. But perfection, I was learning could be the prettiest mask for the ugliest truths. The doorbell rang exactly 1 hour later. When I opened it, Jessica stood there, her work blazer slightly crumpled, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. In her hands, she clutched a thick manila envelope. "Before you say anything," she said, her voice steady despite its hoarseness, "there's something you need to see. About David. About why Emily really left. And why I've been avoiding these perfect family dinners of yours." She stepped inside, and I knew, as I closed the door behind her, that by tomorrow's reunion, nothing would be the same. Sometimes perfect families aren't perfect at all. Sometimes they're just better at hiding their cracks. And sometimes those cracks need to be exposed for any real healing to begin. The manila envelope sat between us on my kitchen counter like a bomb waiting to detonate. Jessica's hands shook slightly as she reached for her coffee, but her eyes held a determination I hadn't seen in months. "I found these documents 6 months ago," she began, her finger tracing the envelope's edge. "I wasn't looking for them. I was actually searching for our insurance papers when I found a hidden compartment in David's desk." She pulled out a stack of papers, spreading them across my pristine granite countertop. Bank statements, offshore account details, and emails. So many emails. "David's been embezzling money from his clients' trust funds," Jessica said quietly. "Small amounts at first, then larger sums. He's been doing it for years, covering his tracks through a series of shell companies." My coffee cup clattered against its saucer. "That's impossible. David would never." "Emily found out," Jessica cut me off. "That's what really happened at the firm. She was working on a case involving one of his clients and noticed discrepancies. She came to me first, thinking I should be the one to tell him he was about to be discovered. The perfect image of my son, star athlete, Harvard Law graduate, devoted husband, began to crack before my eyes. Instead of telling him, Jessica continued, her voice bitter, "I investigated. I couldn't believe it at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. When I confronted David, she paused, pulling up her sleeve to reveal a fading bruise. Let's just say he wasn't the man I married anymore." My stomach lurched. "He hit you?" "Just once. He apologized immediately, blamed the stress, promised to fix everything." She laughed hollowly. "Then he went to the firm's partners and told them Emily had been making mistakes, missing deadlines. He planted evidence, made it look like she was the one mishandling client funds. The pieces clicked into place. Emily's sudden departure, Margaret's hostility, the tension at family gatherings. But why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because of this." Jessica pulled out one final document, a paternity test. "David's not the father of the baby I'm carrying." I stared at her, noticing for the first time the slight swell of her stomach beneath her blazer. "You're pregnant?" 3 months. And before you ask, no, I didn't have an affair. I've been doing IVF. Alone, because David, she took a shaky breath. David's been sterile since a college accident he never told anyone about. He made me keep quiet about our fertility struggles, insisted we tell everyone we were focusing on our careers. His pride couldn't take the hit to his perfect image. The weight of these revelations pressed against my chest. All those times I pressured them about grandchildren, made pointed comments about Jessica's career focus. The shame of my assumptions burned hot in my throat. "Tomorrow at the reunion," Jessica said, gathering the papers back into the envelope, "David plans to announce my pregnancy to everyone. He's already told a few people at work, playing the proud father. But he doesn't know I have proof he can't be the father. He doesn't know I've been documenting everything, the embezzlement, the abuse, the lies. What are you going to do?" "The FBI is already investigating. I've been working with them for months, gathering evidence. They're moving in next week." She met my eyes steadily. "I'm telling you this because, despite everything, you deserve to know the truth before it hits the news. And because I need you to understand why I can't keep coming to these family dinners, pretending everything's fine." The sound of a car door slamming outside made us both jump. Through the kitchen window, I saw David's BMW in the driveway. "He's early," Jessica whispered, hurriedly stuffing the envelope into her bag. "He can't know I was here." I grabbed her arm as she stood to leave through the back door. "Wait, the reunion tomorrow." "I'll be there," she said firmly. "One last perfect family dinner. But this time, I'm not staying quiet." As Jessica slipped out the back, I heard my front door open. David's voice called out, "Mom." Your car's in the driveway, but you're not answering your phone." I quickly wiped my eyes, plastered on a smile, and called back, "In the kitchen, dear. Just finishing up some coffee." David appeared in the doorway, handsome as ever in his expensive suit. Looking at him now, I wondered how I'd missed the signs. The too perfect smile, the controlled movements, the calculated charm. "2 coffee cups?" he asked, his eyes narrowing at the table setting. "Oh, Margaret stopped by earlier," I lied smoothly, channeling the same talent for facades that had apparently run in our family for years. "Just finalizing plans for tomorrow's reunion." He nodded, but I noticed his fingers drumming against his leg. The tell I'd always ignored, choosing to see what I wanted to see in my perfect son. "Actually, Mom," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes, "I have some wonderful news to share tomorrow. Something that will make you very happy." I thought of Jessica's paternity test, of the FBI investigation, of all the lies about to unravel. "I'm sure it will be quite an announcement, dear." As I watched him leave a few minutes later, I realized tomorrow's reunion wouldn't just expose David's lies. It would expose all of us. The things we chose to ignore. The perfect image we prioritized over truth and justice. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Margaret. "We need to talk about Emily and Jessica and the truth." The perfect family was about to shatter. But maybe, I thought as I watched the sun set through my kitchen window, that's exactly what needed to happen. The morning of the reunion dawned bright and clear, mocking the storm that was about to break over our family. I barely slept, spending the night rearranging photos on my walls, smiling faces that now seemed like strangers. Each perfect moment captured in those frames held a different meaning now. By noon, the house filled with familiar sounds. Margaret directing her husband where to place the appetizers, my youngest son Peter arguing with his wife about parking, grandchildren racing through the halls. Everything seemed normal, except nothing was. David arrived early, helping set up chairs with that practiced charm. But I noticed how his eyes kept darting to the driveway, waiting for Jessica. The envelope she'd shown me yesterday felt like a weight in my study's desk drawer, where I'd insisted on keeping a copy, just in case. "Mom," David pulled me aside as guests began arriving. "When Jessica gets here, I want to make the announcement right away. Before dinner." I nodded, wondering if he could hear my heart pounding. "Whatever you think is best, dear." Jessica arrived exactly at 2, wearing a fitted dress that subtly highlighted her small baby bump. She'd styled her hair differently, wearing it down instead of her usual professional updo. It made her look younger, more vulnerable somehow. But her eyes were steel when they met David's across the room. "Shall we gather everyone?" David asked, practically vibrating with barely contained energy. He clinked his glass, calling for attention. "Family, we have wonderful news to share." The room quieted. I saw Margaret whispering something to her husband. Emily's absence felt particularly heavy now. "Jessica and I," David began, wrapping an arm around his wife's waist, "are finally going to make Mom a grandmother. We're expecting." The room erupted in congratulations. Margaret's face twisted in what could have been either a smile or a grimace. Actually, Jessica's voice cut through the chaos, steady and clear. "I have an announcement of my own." David's grip on her waist tightened visibly. "Honey," we agreed. "No, David, no more agreements, no more lies." She stepped away from him, reaching into her purse. "I'm tired of perfect family dinners built on perfect lies." The room fell silent. Even the children stopped playing, sensing the tension. "Jessica," David's voice held a warning, but she was already pulling out papers. "I am pregnant," she confirmed. "But David isn't the father. He can't be. And while we're sharing truths..." She turned to Margaret. "Emily didn't leave because she was incompetent. She left because your perfect son framed her to cover up his own crimes." The explosion of voices was immediate. David lunged for the papers in Jessica's hands, but Peter, my youngest, stepped between them. Someone gasped as Jessica continued laying out documents on the dining room table. Our perfect family dinner transformed into an evidence presentation. "FBI agents are outside," Jessica announced calmly. "They've been building a case for months. Every trust fund you stole from David, every client you defrauded, every document you falsified. It's all here." "You're lying," David snarled, but his face had gone pale. "Mom, you can't believe this. She's trying to destroy our family." I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. No, David. You did that yourself. Every Sunday dinner you sat here, letting us blame Jessica for not giving us grandchildren. When you knew, my voice broke. When you knew you couldn't have children, every time you let us praise your success while you were stealing from clients who trusted you. I found everything yesterday, I continued, addressing the stunned room. The proof was all there, but we were too invested in our perfect family image to see it. Even when Emily tried to tell us, we chose to believe the lie. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. 2 men in suits stood on my porch, badges ready. What happened next seemed to move in slow motion. David's attempt to run through the kitchen, Peter and our cousin James tackling him before he could reach the back door, the FBI agents reading him his rights in our perfect living room, Margaret crying into her husband's shoulder, Jessica standing alone by the evidence-covered dining table, one hand protectively over her stomach. Later that night, after the agents had taken David away, after the shocked family members had trickled out with promises to call Emily, I found Jessica sitting on our porch swing. I never wanted it to end this way, she said softly. I sat beside her, watching the sunset paint the sky in gentle pinks and oranges. I know, but sometimes perfect endings aren't what we need. What happens now? Now? I reached for her hand. Now we build something real. No more perfect Sunday dinners with perfect lies. Just family, messy, complicated, honest family. Jessica smiled slightly, even with a baby whose father came from a sperm donor. Especially then, I squeezed her hand. Because that baby will be born into truth, not lies. And that's more perfect than any facade we could build. As we sat there, I thought about next Sunday's dinner. There would be an empty seat where David used to sit. There would be awkward conversations and painful truths to face. But there would also be healing, beginning with a call I plan to make to Emily first thing tomorrow. Sometimes it takes shattering the perfect image to find something real underneath. And as I watched the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, I realized that's exactly what our family needed all along. Perfect lies had nearly destroyed us. Maybe honest imperfection could save us.